world, it's Keely and I'm back for another video. This is going to be my 10 before the end of 2025 that I really want to get to. This is going to be a fantasy series edition, basically. There are so many books that I want to get to by the end of the year. In my end of year reading plans tag video, I talked about a lot of them, but I recently finished The Golden Compass, which is the first book in the His Dark Materials original trilogy, and it was my third time reading it, but I'm determined to finish this frickin' trilogy before the end of this year. And it just kicked me back into a fantasy reading mood, so I am deep into some more fantasy right now. And I thought I would talk you through all of the series that I've been working on over the years that I'm like really trying to wrap up. There are so many fantasy series that I am so excited to get to that I have like the first book or the first couple books in, and I just want to finish up the ones that I have been working on so I can start fresh in 2026 and dive into some new ones, because there are some huge fantasy worlds that I have never read from that I would really like to read. Now I have 2 pages in my reading journal where I'm kind of keeping track. So the first one is this one right here, which says 10 fantasy before 2026. There's more than 10 here, but these are series that I was like, okay, I want to finish these up. And then I also have an actual series reading log in my reading journal, where throughout the year, these are like the main ones, and then throughout 2025, as I've read from them, I have filled in more boxes, and I put a star next to all the ones that I finished or got caught up before the end of 2025. Let's talk about the ones that I have finished so far in November and am currently reading. I meant to grab it, but I'm not getting up again. I have a TBR jar, which is the lid for a butter dish that is plastic, and I put on little slips a bunch of different series and then also little prompts, and every time that I finish one, I have my husband pick the next one, and then I keep track in my reading journal. So I have this right here, which is my series TBR jar, and I have Jerry, my husband, pick, and so the first one that he picked was the Shadow Histories book 2, so I read that one. Then he picked Start a Series, so I read the first book in the Save Us Corax series, finished that one. Then he picked this one, so he picked to continue the Lady Astronaut series by Mary Robinette Kowal. I just finished the second book last night. The first book is The Calculating Stars. I read that one a couple of years ago, and I was kind of worried that like going into the second book I wouldn't remember enough, but I remembered almost all of it. It really stayed with me for some reason. So I did finish this one last night. I have the third book, which is The Relentless Moon. The fourth book just came out this year. I don't have that one yet. So technically, I was looking up last night, technically the first 2 books in this series, which is the Lady Astronaut series, are considered a duology by the author. So you could read the first 2 and be done, because the first 2 are about the same character, Elma. So in the first book, Elma is a mathematician, scientist, her husband is an engineer, and there is a giant meteor that hits Earth basically in Washington, D.C. and wipes out the entire eastern seaboard of the United States. And then that causes a whole bunch of other massive catastrophes. Elma is then part of a team with her husband and a bunch of other engineers, scientists, astronauts who are trying to then go to the moon. And they're basically trying to determine, can we have colonies on the moon in case we need to evacuate the Earth? And you're following Elma then through the first book as she's dealing with like really bad treatment from a lot of the men in her life, because this takes place in the 50s and 60s, and so women scientists were not taken seriously. They very much like had their place, and so you're really dealing with a ton of sexism in the first book, and then also a lot of grief and trying to figure out like who survived, who didn't, what do we do next? The government is gone, so like what do we do? And that's the first book. The second book, you're continuing on with Alma and a lot of the astronauts from the first book. I loved this. I thought this was so great. I need to update the TBR jar, but if he does draw the slip for the third one, I will read the third one before the end of the year. But since that one is considered a duology, I'm not like super eager to get to this one because the series is like kind of done. This one is called The Relentless Moon, and this one involves another female astronaut who is, it takes place on like the same timeline. So this takes place, I believe, during the time of the first book, but instead of Elma, it's focused on a different woman and her family. So I am interested to get to this one, but I'm not like chomping at the bit to get it marked off my series list. After I finished the second book in the Lady Astronaut series, I had him pull a bunch of slips, and unfortunately every slip he pulled was an ebook, and I'm already reading an ebook, which I'll talk to you about in a second, and so I was like, okay, put it back, pick a slip until you get to another series that is a physical book. He picked the second book in the God King Chronicles by Mike Brooks, the Splinter King, and I am stressed about this one because this one's massive, and or maybe it's not that big. Nope, it is that big. It's almost 600 pages. I read the first book and I remember a little bit, but not a ton. And so what I need to do is go back and reread the description of the first one and see if there's a Wikipedia page that gives like a summary of the first one so I can kind of jog my memory and then get to this one. This one's been sitting on my shelf for a couple years, so I would love to have this one marked off. The other one that I also finished so far this month was my reread of The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. This is book 1 in the His Dark Materials. I would love to finally finish this friggin' trilogy and be done with this trilogy. I've had it on my shelf off and on since I started BookTube in 2014, and so I really want to have this series marked off as like, yes, I've read this finally. And I just got a notification that book 2, which is The Subtle Knife, is available from my library as an ebook, so I will be reading that soon. The books that I am currently reading now. I started last night this one, which is one of my most anticipated get it off your frickin' TBR books. This is The Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart. It's the third and final book in the Drowning Empire trilogy. I assume it's a trilogy because she published another book that's a different series, so I'm assuming that this is it. I have had this sitting on my shelf for years and I haven't finished it, and I need to because I read the first book, The Bone Shard Daughter, years and years ago. And then I think it was like last year, the year before, I read the second book, which is The Bone Shard Emperor. And at the time I was like, I love that, let's keep going. And I started this book and then I got distracted by like 8 other books and I put it down and I never picked it back up. I don't want this trilogy to go unread another year. So I picked it up last night. I read the first 50 pages. I'm up to chapter 5. I am really enjoying it already because I really enjoyed the first 2 and all of the characters. This one, you're following Lynn, who is the daughter of the Emperor in the first book. And in this universe, they use bone shards for magic and then like draws like runes and shit on. And they can create constructs, which basically make like sentient beings that then do what the Emperor wants. It's a ton of like politics and war, and it's just wonderful. I really, really loved the first 2, so I am reading this one to finish this friggin' trilogy. The other book that I'm currently reading, I am 45% of the way through. This one I'm reading on my Kindle from the library, and it is the 3rd book in the Foundryside trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett, and it's called Locklands. I loved Foundryside. I loved Shorefall, and then I never continued on, and so I need to finish this friggin' trilogy because Robert Jackson Bennett has moved on to his next series, and the first 2 books I think are already out of this next series, and that is his Tainted Cup. It's like detective duo, and I've heard incredible things. I absolutely love Robert Jackson Bennett, and my husband wants to buddy read those books, so I need to finish this trilogy so that I can be fresh and start another Robert Jackson Bennett. This one is a fantasy world that's kind of hard to explain, but it's another world where there are constructs and different magic. In this universe, in the first book, you're following Sansia, who is a thief and she's tasked with stealing something huge, but it uncovers a bunch of other stuff that's going on in this universe. There's again a lot of politics. There are like major houses that are controlling all of the power and money and the people, and so Sanzia kind of gets wrapped up in this like rebel movement, and then lots of stuff happens from there. That's like a really shitty way to explain it because it's really complicated, but I am absolutely loving it. Yeah, I'm 45% of the way through, so I will be trying to power through and finish that one quickly because I have so many other ones to get to. The next one that I really need to finish is this one, which is Human Rights by Juno Dawson. This is the third and final book in the Her Majesty's Royal Coven trilogy. This is about witches. I bought this one when it came out this year and I started reading it and then I put it down, so I need to actually finish it. Another one I really need to finish is the Hell's Library series by A.J. Hackwith. I have the fourth and final book to read. This one is The God of Lost Words, and I absolutely love this series. The first book, you're following Claire, who is a librarian in Hell's Library, as she is trying to become the librarian and work with the other beings that live in the library, angels and demons and all kinds of shit. And it's just so much fun, and I loved the first 3 books, and this book is not even that long. I need to just finally wrap up this series and be done with it. I would also love to finally finish The Two Towers by Tolkien and get another chunk of Lord of the Rings finished before the end of the year. I don't know how many years, y'all, that I have been saying, this is the year when I'm finally going to read Lord of the Rings, and then I just never do it. It was either earlier this year or last year, I think I finally read Fellowship, and then I started The Two Towers and never completed it, so I need to finish this one. I also really need to read the next book in the Greenwild series by Perry Thompson, The City Beyond the Sea. This is a middle grade plant magic series, and the 3rd book is out. I don't know if it's only a trilogy, but I immediately bought this after I read the first book, and I loved it so much, but then I didn't pick it up, so I really want to read that one. The 3rd book in the Heart and Mercy trilogy, which just came out this year, that I need to read and be done with. I have the 2nd book in the, is it the Litverse duology? With the 2nd book, I think is called Defect. It's like, that the one that's like an IKEA kind of vibe. They're not that long. I have that one. I have the 2nd book in the new series from Martha Wells to read, Queen Demon, because I just read Witch King. But I will say the last one that I can actually talk about is going to be the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I read the 5th book, which was The Butcher's Masquerade. I will not be reading the 6th book, which is The Eye of the Bedlam Bride, until December. These books are getting bigger and bigger as the year goes. I will not be reading the 6th book until December, because then about like February or March, I will then read the 7th book, This Inevitable Ruin, which is also absolutely massive, because the 8th book doesn't come out, I think, until June as of right now. That's what I saw. It's not coming out until June, and I don't want to read them like too early and then have to wait, 6 months for the next one to come out. I know once I get caught up to book 8, I'm going to be with everyone else waiting for the next 2 books, because Matt Dinniman has said that he anticipates he can finish the series in 10 books. I want to finish up and get caught up with the series by the time that book 8 comes out, so that my husband and I can read book 8 together, and then we can finish the series together as it continues to come out. My husband has read through the series twice this year. I've only done so once because they're absolutely massive, but that is one that I will also be reading towards the end of this year. If we go back and we look through the list, there I wrote down that I would finish 10. I have this list here. Oh, the 3rd one that I really need to finish is the Scholomance trilogy by Naomi Novik, because I've been reading that one this year too. Of the list that I have here, I have His Dark Materials, read The Two Towers, finish the Scholomance trilogy, get caught up on Queen Demon, finish the Greenwild series if I can, read the 2nd book in the Whisperwicks, which just came out, I have from the library, read the 2nd book in that Litverse duology, which is Defect, His Majesty's Royal Coven, Bone Shard War, Foundry Side, so I'm reading Locklands right now, Hell's Library, which I talked about, Heart and Mercy, and then Fortuna Sworn. So every Friday I post a video. For the next couple Fridays, at least this one coming up, I will be talking about the books that I have completed for the Read What You Own challenge, which, if you didn't see my last video, if you haven't heard of this challenge, it's basically where you set yourself a certain amount of books or a certain amount of pages and you try to read that, like read up to that goal before buying another book. And I set my first challenge to 25 and I have finished 2 so far. I'm going to continue working on that, and then hopefully like once a week, unless I can think of another video, once a week I will come back and let you know my status with that goal, and I will also try to let you know which series I am marking off. Because like I said, I've got a billion other fantasy series that I have the first book that I'm really interested in getting through. Also sci-fi, because I did start Hyperion by Dan Simmons, and then I did start The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I know this is a lot. I just threw a lot of information at you. I have many 10 before the end lists, but the one I'm working on right now is my fantasy list. So if that changes, I will let you know in my weekly update videos. But right now, I would love to knock out some of these fantasy series and finish them up before the end of the year, and then move into brand new exciting ones for 2026, because my list is rapidly growing of new series that I want to get to, or like new to me series, even though, you know, some of these have been out for a very long time. Let me know if you have like any series that you're working on that you're trying to wrap up before the end of the year. Do you have a 10 before the end that you're working on? Do you think I should read any of these before any of the other ones? Do you know of other series that I should add to my list? And that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.